Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
Most of the time when we talk to organizations, and you'll have experienced this too in your own career, organizations really focus on leadership development and building great leaders. But it's occurred to us in PowerSuit that most of the time, most of us are actually playing the role of follower. We have a manager we report to. It doesn't even really matter how senior you are. You might be a chief executive even, and you report to the board. And if you're the chair of the board, you report to shareholders. So we're all actually often playing the role of follower, even if we are in leadership positions. And no one has really ever taught or teaches you how to be a great follower. Have you ever been sort of specifically taught what great followership looks like?
Well, I think I have in terms of society, like socially what a follower is. And often when I think about that, I think of like someone in the military or when something like quite I don't know, is it like quite a structured and rigid environment that is like clearly a leader and a follower? I kind of think about that, or I think of like cult examples and followers. I
Of
think
course you do.
I think the word follower has a bad rap. Like it's gonna have a real branding problem as we dig into this. Like it does. Very few people will admit they want to be a follower. You know?
I always go back to that video of the first follower when the crazy person's dancing in the field and they're like, this is just one lone crazy person. But the first follower is actually the leader because they're the ones who clocked on what the mission is and are actually building the momentum. But I think you're bang on. And even when we were writing the newsletter about this and started talking about it, I actually like the term followership because I feel like in most things, when you make it sound more fancy, it stops people feeling like it takes away all the bias.
More culty, more culty.
Yeah, but we do have all these connotations with following, like, it makes you a sheep. By the way, I watched Sheep Detective in the weekend, and sheep can think for themselves. But it makes you feel like you're a sheeple or that you don't think for yourself or that you are in the military and have to follow orders. And all of those messages and that conditioning has actually turned a lot of us into really poor followers, and we don't play the role very well. And we don't even realize we're not playing the role very well because we're kind of pushing against the idea that we even need to play the role.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, I'm a huge fan of us using it. I just wonder if we have to rebrand it somehow against this lovely gentleman, Robert Kelly, who's come up with these styles. And so, what I thought we would do is just do a quiz initially for all of our listeners. We're going to do a quiz, and Nat, you think about this as well. And I'm going to use an outside of work example. Okay, you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Scenario: you're delivering the Pony Riding Club's annual quiz night fundraiser.
I
You
think
and a
it's just
team are
called a
delivering
pony
it.
club.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's
Pony
just a
Riding Club.
pony club. I don't think they're called pony riding clubs.
Yeah, you're riding the pony. 2 weeks out, the venue for the annual quiz night of the Pony Riding Club falls through, okay? The prizes, not sorted, and the committee chair, the leader, has asked for an update, okay? So this is the scenario. What do you do? I'm gonna give you a few examples. A, and everyone listen, what do? You keep doing whatever you've been asked to do until someone gives you the next direction, because frankly, it's kind of not your business. B, you roll your eyes and think, "I knew this would happen." And then you might privately complain to your partner. C, you keep an eye on what happens and you get ready to jump in behind the accepted plan. You're ready. Just someone else take the lead here. D, you keep doing whatever you've been asked to do. You don't wanna step on the organizer's toes. E, you start suggesting solutions, alternative venues, sponsors, and ideas in the group chat. What would you do, Nat?
Well, when it comes to a pony riding club, I'd probably put, guys, it's not called pony riding club, it's called a pony club, and derail the conversation and go completely off track. In this context, I used to be an E. I'd have jumped in and like absolutely like, and I would have done that before the chairperson asked for an update. These days, I'm more of a C. I'll keep my eye on what happens and jump in ready to jump to back whatever the accepted plan is, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to be the one pushing it
Okay.
forward.
I love it. I'd be a bee in this scenario. I would definitely roll my eyes, and then I would grab the popcorn and just watch what happens in the chat, and then I would just, like, let Kyle know. I'd be like, "I knew this would happen. I knew this was gonna be the case, because of blah, 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 blah." So I'd be a bee. And I think this is I think we're let's go into what Robert Kelly talked about. These were because these responses broadly align with the 5 followership styles. And just to note before we dig into the followership styles, which clearly I'm like, well, it'd be interesting. I can't remember the name of my thing, but the roll my eyes person is they're not personality types. They're actually just snapshots. So, like the same person, I can move between styles depending on my energy levels, the culture of the working group, the leadership, who's in charge, my workload, what's happening in my life, confidence maybe as I approach something. Like I might feel a little bit weird about kind of taking a little bit more control in that scenario. But anyway, just a note, this isn't a personality style, and I'm not stuck with my roll my eyes label, whatever that is as we
You
go
are.
through
You
this.
absolutely are stuck with that label from now on in.
Okay. All right. Now you tell do you wanna walk us through the 5 styles? And this was research done in the 1988, which is a good year, by the way. 88. This was the year of the Calgary Winter Olympics, where I went and wore all my Olympic pins, and I watched Eddie the Eagle live in person. So I'm just saying 88 was a good year, and this is when he came out with this stuff.
I was 4 years old, so I wasn't watching Eddie the Eagle, but I have since watched. One thing I would like to caveat these snapshots is it also tends to allude a little bit to your perception of what the follower role does mean, and like the pony riding club example, you may feel like you are a certain position in the hierarchy. It might be a pretty flat structure with the committee, so you may take on more of a leadership role. If you were to transplant yourself into that same situation within an organization where there was a clear hierarchy, if you perceived that roles being quite specific, you may go into more of a passive role than an active role. So there is some like sort of beliefs about the world and hierarchy and roles and stepping on toes and politeness that comes into play as well. Okay, we're going to start with A. A was keep doing whatever you've been asked to do until someone gives you the next direction because it's not your business. That is a passive follower. So you wait for direction, you wait for instructions, you avoid decisions and escalate everything upwards. So this is someone who'll probably do what they are told to do and then wait until the next instruction is given. Obviously, this can come down to an attitude about whose role it is to give you work. And I would say probably when you're very new in your career, not that you're expected to be passive, but that kind of your job is to deliver on instructions mentality can kind of fit in. You may not actually recognize that your job is sometimes to go out and ask for what's next and be proactive about what work comes your way. You may feel really underconfident or worried about sort of stepping outside the rails or the box of what your job is. You may have fear where your workplace where initiative has been punished or like, stepping in and doing stuff on your own. Or you may have just sort of decided it's safer or it's like kind of easier to just like kind of just sit there passively and wait for work to be directed your way. So that's follower style A, passive follower.
Okay, and then I will talk about who I am, roll my eyes, and think I knew this would happen. I am an alienated follower. I told you so, people. They see probably I don't think I'm this person, but like in that context, I probably was. Okay, I see problems quickly. These people think independently and are often highly critical. Many started out, for some, in some scenarios, again, they might have started out highly engaged, but become cynical for various reasons. Either it could be their ideas were ignored, there could be trust that was broken, it could be simply being wired a little bit that way when things don't quite go to plan. But their strength is seeing risks that others miss. But the challenge is turning this criticism into kind of productive working solutions or action.
If you've worked in a team before, you'll start to, as we go through these, probably find it easier to recognize in other people. Like as we've gone through these, which by the way, I did not put you in that boat, but I think there's a bunch of people I have worked with who I would put in that boat. So just think about people maybe in your team, people you've worked with, and start to sort of group them and see if this kind of makes work make a lot more sense. I will move on to C, which is me. Keep an eye on what happens and get ready to jump in behind the accepted plan. This group is survivor, survivor followers. They're just putting their heads down, adapting, avoiding risks, and just focusing on getting through. And that's why I would do that in a volunteer organization because I'm like, I'm here to just sort of do my bare minimum and survive. If it was in a work context, I absolutely wouldn't play this role, but I have learnt, in my life, often being an instigator, to kind of move that role, move to a survivor. So, often this is about circumstances, like I say, depending on the situation. You might be burnt out, you might be exhausted. We have gone through several years of ongoing change and transformation, and I can imagine anyone, I know a few people who've been made redundant once, twice, multiple times in the last few years, and you're probably not looking to put your head up and drive things forward at the moment. So that you may have fallen into that role and you're very much just focused on following the tide and trying to cling on to the boat.
Survive, yeah, just survive, just get through. Okay, let's move to D, which was, just keep doing whatever you've been asked to do. You don't wanna step on organizers' toes, so this is almost like, yeah, this is called the conformist. So they are reliable and supportive, genuinely, like, "I'm just gonna do what's asked of me," because, they do it well. The challenge is that they mistake being a team player for always agreeing. They're very agreeable, these conformists. So leaders love the effort, but they may hesitate to promote conformists because they haven't yet seen what they often will classify as like strategic thinking or constructive challenge, which kind of takes conformists ultimately to that next seniority level. So that is a conformist as it relates to Robert Kelly's five followership styles. And you're going to end on the last one, Nat.
Yeah, I feel like those conformists, that is one that a lot of women fall into when we talk about being helpful versus being strategic by removing initiative and critical challenge and critical thinking from the role, which a lot of us are conditioned to think is not our role. You end up being positioned as a conformist, which is kind of, if you are going through this and going, "Ooh, maybe that's me." The final one, E, you start suggesting solutions, alternative venues, sponsors ideas in the group chat. My argument would be this type of person wouldn't actually wait for an update either. They've already clocked it and they've started to proactively share that stuff. And this is the effective followers. They're not waiting, they're not complaining, they're not taking over. They see their role as active contribution. What I really like about this group is they actually see followership as a role. Like, they don't see it as a subordinate, they don't see it as an inferior role. They genuinely see themselves as peers to the people who hierarchically more senior. They recognize and respect job titles, but they think from a person to person perspective, they are actually equal. And that means that they can take initiative, they are allowed to think critically. Their challenge is valued, and their job is to bring solutions rather than problems. And that, of course, means their leaders trust them because they reduce load and they can be relied upon to exercise judgment. This group, effective followers, in my opinion, and I feel like in all the research I read, is like clearly the one that we all want to be. And as a people leader, these are the people you want on your team. I want to add a couple of caveats about initiative, which I think we should cover in a future podcast, what good initiative looks like and how it is a bit nuanced. But what I found really interesting when I was doing some research into this is someone said that they thought about 85 to 90% of people would identify as an effective follower, which is statistically impossible. But also, if you talk to any people leaders, they will probably tell you 100% that it is not possible that 90% of their team
I
are effective
know.
followers.
Well, that's why I kinda wanted to use a non-work example because I think even myself, like I see myself, probably in what is it? Rose-tinted glasses of like you're like, I'm on every group project, I am because I wanna see myself that way in a work context, so kind of thought, well, taking it outside of work, however imperfect it was, is often when you do see yourself, how you contribute in a friends group or a family holiday or something, and then it's maybe more easier for us to think about our work projects right now, our deliverables that often rely on groups of people and delivering something, then maybe it's a little bit easier to see ourselves as maybe not always the effective followers, because like, that would be
Mm.
hard to do all the time in every facet of our lives too, right? Like, really?
And at every yeah, at every stage and situation.
Yeah.
The 2 big factors that separate effective followers from everyone else is that initiative, and when I say initiative, again, we'll deep dive into it. That is not running off in a silo and operating on your own and trying to own a piece of work and kind of, guarding it, which I think a lot of people think ownership looks like, in my experience anyway. So really understanding when good initiative means proactive updates, coming with the problem and suggested solutions, and other times when you are expected to just go get it done. But the second part is critical thinking. So I feel like the two very quick tests is if you come across a problem, what is your immediate reaction? Is it to sort of hide it? Is it to palm it off on someone else? Is it to just kind of ignore it because it's not your role? Or is it to proactively do something about it? So that's like a little test in various contexts. And then for the critical thinking and challenge one is we all critically, I mean, I think most of us critically think, and in different contexts, we do challenge. But if how often, and this is something that I have heard multiple times, where people say, "I really disagreed with that solution," or "I disagreed with that idea," or "I disagreed after the meeting," but they don't say it in the meeting. And if you're the person to say it after the meeting instead of in the meeting, you're probably not pushing that challenge side, which probably means you're not sitting in an effective follower role in that situation. So I just think those two factors are really interesting to challenge ourselves on and recognize they're not like you may have a gut instinct of going, oh, that feels uncomfortable, or it feels rude, or it feels like I'm pushing beyond my role. And that's why this conversation is important because we might need to change some mindsets on that.
Yeah, I think those are actually great in terms of actions for people this week, is actually just be aware when problems land on your plate, what is the role that you inhabit most easily right now? And I think naturally we have experienced a lot of change. A bunch of us are really tired. And there's great reason for follow slipping into different roles. But we're just calling it out because this is a follow on from our last episode, our podcast, where we've been chatting with a lot of leaders who are struggling with getting people to, as you described it, the take initiative and to think critically. And it's like, there's good reason in our careers, if we wanna be, valued and if we want to progress in our careers, that's probably one of the easier ways to do it, is to kind of inhabit that role and to think of just some small, value ways to do it. I think important to call out. But there are some cultural nuances that we probably should kinda share a little bit. Hey, like, when I was kind of reading a bit on this morning, it was, naturally, I think we should call out diversity in culture and how some cultures, what looks passive in one culture might be entirely appropriate in another, or what might be, yeah, like even gendered roles in like, women often do take on work such as supporting and coordinating and helping and kind of behind the scenes. And yet they may not be viewed, they might be just viewed as conformists because in fact they're missing those critical elements that you called out, just that little bit of that step, which I think as a leader, if you're listening, you can really help coach, set expectations, give freedom for people to do that as well.
Yeah, and I think a couple of the insights that I found really good at shifting our mindset on followership. One is that followership is almost exactly the same as self leadership. And I think we could probably use those terms interchangeably. They're that close. And that really repositions followership to we see it as a drain, subordinate, like I need support from my manager. It's their job to help me into it is my job to proactively step up and lead myself in the situation. So I think that's a great mindset shift. And then the second mindset shift is if you don't know how to be a great follower, it is much harder to be a great leader. Because if you don't know what it looks like to have people come behind your ideas and buy in and deliver things proactively, then how on earth are you going to encourage other people to do it? So I think we sometimes mistake that those two things don't, they have to go hand in hand. And like I said at the start, we're all playing multiple roles often. Some people are just in follower roles, but in a project might be in a leadership role. You might be the CEO, but you're also a follower to the board. So it is actually fine, like, we do need to change that. Um, I was laughing about your saying different cultures because there were 2 conversations I had with power suitors recently, and one, there is a culture in the organization where it's almost like you are punished for speaking up about challenges because no one in leadership seems to want to hear them. They're like, "Just get it done anyway." And I was like, "That's a really interesting way to really put in place poor followership habits because why would you raise problems early and proactively take initiative if the pushback is always just get it done faster?" So I thought that. And then the second one, when you talked about culture, as one of our fabulous partner organizations, and they're growing globally, and that means there's all sorts of different cultures coming into the workplace, and there has been a massive culture clash between 2 different people in 2 different countries, one who presents presents a lot more confidently, and that's the really biased perception of confident. They're loud, assertive, speak a lot, and then another culture is way more. Um, I'm not gonna say passive, but like humble. Is humble the right word? Low key, casual, don't speak, like, and the second group is really starting to want to leave because they are feeling like they're not good at their job and they can't get buy-in, and I just thought, "Oh, that's such an interesting thing when you're talking about leadership." Those are the things leaders need to spot because that can really push poor followership styles because you're not creating an environment for people to feel like they can be effective.
And sometimes that's like, in my opinion, it's just as easy to what set expectations and be really clear what it looks like. You don't have to use the word, but and then I think when people think about their approach to work, I don't know what I wonder if there's like a personal motivation and or driver as it relates to this. Like when I think about when I have wanted in my career to be an effective follower, for me, it was actually about personal agency. We did a podcast, oh my gosh, ages ago, like probably back in the 30s or 40s. And it was like what we valued. And for me, it was autonomy. And the only way for me to get autonomy, like to actually feel like I was in control of my work and the outcome and proud of my contribution, was that I had personal agency. But that only came for me by taking responsibility before almost before I was given authority and like, actually being proactive and not doing the work. That's not what I did, but it was like influencing the work or putting forth my ideas or starting something that I felt was really critical and presenting kind of some key highlights before kind of progressing it or whatever. Like, I think it was just effectively kind of how you described that take initiative. I'm just like, that for me was personal agency, which equated to more responsibility, which equated to promotion. So there's like a win at the end for me.
Yeah, and I feel like this is one of those kind of challenging conversations because 85 to 90% of people think that they're an effective follower. And yet, I think both of us know a ton of business owners and experienced people leaders who, when you get them out on their own, will say, I never want to manage people ever again. I am so burnt from managing people. And I feel like this should be a real light bulb moment for followership that we are sort of trained, conditioned, led to believe that having a manager or being beneath lower down in the hierarchy than someone else means it's their job to do stuff for us. And that means things like they need to support me emotionally. They need to tell me what to do. They need to give me feedback, that all of those things. Whereas if we can flip that into self leadership, which is why Power Suit talks about self leadership over leadership or followership, because the same skills apply in any situation, you end up in, I feel like both you and I spoke about this years ago about that idea of like, we've never really felt like we've had managers because like, I was always happy to get up and walk out if I didn't like an environment. I never felt like I have ever had someone who was the boss of me. And I think it's a mindset of I'm in control of myself and I'm in control of my input and my value and the decisions I make. And kind of having that of like, if I disagree with something, obviously do it respectfully and professionally, but it is my job to do that. And yeah, I just think there's something really interesting in this that we're not taught that if you have a personality type that kind of just decides that, fine. But if you don't, this should be a real challenge to go, why do I feel like I'm not valued for my opinions? Because I can tell you right now, as someone who's managed a whole ton of people and spoken to a bunch of people leaders as well, they are dying for you to step up and share your opinion and try something again. Like there is nuance to not running off and doing things on your own, but testing that side of things, oh, it's so good. And yeah, that level of autonomy and ownership you get, it's so rewarding to feel
Yeah.
like you're in control of your work.
I was chatting with someone just last week, a power suitor, and it was really interesting. First of all, she was like, "I am delivering my work, and I'm working. I don't know, huge." She was working huge hours. She said just to deliver what she called her BAU work. Like it was nothing above and beyond. I wasn't clear if it was strategic work. We only had a really short convo, but she was like, "I'm." It was like when after I spoke to her, it was like she was waiting for her work and those hours to speak for themselves and to become visible and valued, when really she was just delivering what was expected. But, like, anyway, so clearly there's some stuff going on there, right? Like, she shouldn't have to work, that much. She's definitely contributing. But what I noticed was when she would describe, like, who she socially interacted with at work or, and she called out that someone else got a promotion and she didn't, yet this person wasn't working as hard as her. So it's like classic. So I kind of was like, I asked her when she makes her thinking visible. When is she actively shaping conversations? When is she speaking to stakeholders that are more senior than her? She didn't check any of those boxes. So when I was digging into followership today, I was like, oh, she's definitely conformist. Like you give her loads of work and you will just load her up because she just does it. She just did it, thinking that, that great work will speak to herself. She gets to performance reviews and she doesn't get the highest score. And again, I can just see her leader, like, I just think it's the opening of a really great conversation about, like, what this means in terms of her and effectiveness in the team and how she might, like, what is the gap for her to be able to make more strategic contributions? Yeah, anyway, it was
No,
interesting.
I think that's a great example because that's what really struck me learning about the conformist type, that I'm so convinced it's gendered, and there are a ton of women burning themselves out, and that conformist type works incredibly hard, they're incredibly engaged, and we've spoken before about calendars filled with 30 odd meetings in a week, et cetera, and just going, "Why is this not valued?" And that is because when it comes to performance review time, your people leaders are looking and going, "You're not ready to step up to the next table because you haven't contributed, you haven't pushed back, you haven't shared your opinions, you haven't challenged ideas, you haven't just been able to, I can't trust you to just go and do something without me guiding you through it." So they're judging you on that, and you're judging yourself on how hard you're working and how well you deliver things. And that works very early stage in your career. But every step up you go, the second part of that effective followership style becomes more and more important, and no one ever tells you. So you kind of get stuck in this rut, and you're getting so frustrated, and your people leader's probably getting frustrated because they're like, "You're smart, you're capable. Why aren't you bringing more of the stuff that we value?" But you don't even know that's the stuff that they value because you may even think it's rude, not your place, impolite. It might be stepping on toes, whatever it might be that's stopping you doing it. It is really worth challenging that mindset and going, what if I did just push back on something? If I disagree with it, what is stopping me pushing back on it?
I think the invitation is just to become aware when you're in group dynamics, team dynamics this year as it relates to a project or a deliverable, and just to think about where you might be slipping into. I think that self-awareness is really, I would suggest, an action. And if you've noticed a style that you've unintentionally embraced, well, we're going to develop a couple mini master classes in PowerSuit on just this and how you can actually shift that style, which will shift your visibility, your value. So yeah, check it out at powersuit.com. We're going to start to develop those, eh, Nat?
Yeah, I love it. And also I feel like if you do sort of, we have this, one of my favorite thing about power suiters is we often run these sort of, so what did someone say? We help you really challenge yourself in a very kind way. And I feel like that is our job, because if we would just sit here as your absolute hype girls saying everything you do is perfect, we're actually not helping you at all. Whereas this kind of challenge into like, really think about it can be an unlock, because it is nothing to do with you, how intelligent you are, how capable you are. It is often to do with conditioning or like just assumptions that we're left to make about roles in a workplace. So, like, if you can walk away from this and kind of go, oh, actually, I might be passive or a conformist, or I might be that survivor, or I might be, what's the one, what's your one? I might be the one who's diverting my critical thinking and incredible capability to kind of going, oh, I knew this would happen. I actually know someone who's managing someone who's like that now. And fortunately, she's a great people leader and can recognize the amount that they bring to the table and is trying to help them harness it into a more effective style. But it's amazing. Like those sorts of things, like once you spot it, you can do something about it. So we'd love to hear. We've actually heard back from a bunch of people on the newsletter we wrote about this, about how it's impacted them. My favorite was actually a conversation between a power suiter and her husband. Did you see that? She said it sparked a conversation, and they both picked what they thought each other's followership style was, and then they picked their own, and they were quite different. And it really led them to have a conversation about what their expectations of what it looked like to be an effective follower was. And so maybe grab a friend and get them to listen to the podcast and have a chat, or a workmate, and kind of have a chat about where you think you sit in this. Because I don't know, I always find that sort of learning about myself interesting and going, oh, yeah, I do fit into that role sometimes. Whoopsie. I might focus on that a little bit more.
Agreed. Please do reach out. Check out powersuit.com, and we will dig into this a little bit more for those that are members. And we will catch you next time.
Come and follow us as a Power Suit member. Be
Nice.
an effective follower.
Thanks, everyone. Catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.